Hi, my name is Flo, and I'm excited to do this talk for the AI Engineer conference. I'm very passionate about the AI space, especially generative AI and language models. I've dropped almost everything I was doing to focus on this space for the past year or so, and I've played around with every generative AI tool I could get my hands on using my home setup. I've taken a few courses, but I could be described as a junior AI engineer at best, so no credentials, just vibes. So take anything I say with a grain of salt. With that being said, I want to show you guys some visualized data sets. These are the data sets that were used to fine tune some of the most performant open language models. The resulting fine tuned models are not popular just because they did well on some benchmark, but because they're actually useful. Okay, this first data set is Puffin. It is only 3,000 records long. It's a very small but potent, and was really touted as one of the best data sets to fine tune a base model with despite its size. If you're not familiar, this is a scatter plot, and here if we hover over any of the plots, we can see the sentences that fall within the topic cluster. The process we use also outputs word scores, so you can look into the biggest topics and see what words occur the most. Moving on to the second data set, this is the Skunkworks MOE data set. If you've been under a rock, GPT-4 is in the lead, but the open source community, which seems to include Zuckerberg and his AI team at Meta, are frantically trying to catch up to the quality of GPT-4. This data set represents one of those efforts to catch up. The official Skunkworks MOE data set is 1.5 million rows of data. And this is one of the caveats I'll go over later, but not all 1.5 million rows of data is in this graph. This is about 10% of that that's represented here. But with this tool, you can actually break down the data however you want. You can include all 1.5 million rows if you would like. Here we can see some of the words that were mentioned the most in the biggest topic clusters. Okay, so using this tool, we actually output two different kinds of scatter plots using two different plugins. So you have the option to explore clusters in a couple different ways. Moving on to the last data set, this one is Open Hermes or Hermes, but this is another one of the data sets that's used to fine tune some of the top models. Now, I'm quickly going over these just to showcase how different these data sets can look, and it really just shows a wide range of vocabulary, topics, plot shapes, and spreads. Okay, so who should visualize their data? Visualizing a data set that you have created may be very useful to you. I have some things in the notebook that we're going to go over later that can reveal some conversations that may be surprising to you. Let's say you work for a company or an organization and you want to fine tune a model on company data. You're curating data sets, or maybe you want to combine company data with one of these top performing open source data sets. Or LangChain agents. Let's say you're using an agent to not only query your docs, but also collect data for you over time. You can visualize that data. Or let's say you're doing retrieval, RAG. You can compile a list of all the documents you've embedded and visualize the topics of the documents. This can be useful in a lot of different agent scenarios. This talk is also for someone like myself. I initially started learning this process because I wanted to understand what's so special about what's in these data sets. I want to build my own data for fine tuning. I just think there's something powerful about being able to easily visualize what's in a large set of data. I alluded to some of these earlier, but being able to get a glimpse at how the data is clustered in your data set is important. Maybe you're heavy on the math side, or maybe your data set could use some more logic and reasoning, but seeing what you need more or less of can help. I love learning about SQL and databases, CSVs and Excel, but I think looking at this stuff visually unlocks a different perspective. The fact that you can keep your data local is also helpful. This method does not require any OpenAI models because maybe it's not just private company data, but personal data that you're collecting. Something I actually find really intriguing is these role-playing models. So this method may be great for taking a peek at those NSFW datasets. There are some caveats that come with this process, and I'll speak on this more later in the tutorial, but sometimes you can't fit the whole dataset into an interactive graph. Especially if we're talking about 500,000, a million, 50 million rows of data, it becomes very difficult to plot that using HTML. The other thing is that these models are non-deterministic. You could use the same settings over multiple runs and still end up with slightly different topics and labels. Okay, so how do we actually do this? If you're on a gaming PC, I recommend that you have a 3060 or better. I think AMD and Intel GPUs can work, but there will be no CUDA cores to take advantage of, so the process will be a little slower. If you're on an Apple computer, having an M1 or an M2 should allow you to get through this process. You'll just have to do it using CPU, at least until the GGML guys work their magic. As far as operating systems go, if you're on Windows, please just use WSL. I struggled to get this to work on Windows natively. If you're on Mac OS or Linux, any Unix-based operating system, you should be good to go. If all else fails, you can still use Google Colab. Maybe I'm a little superstitious, it's just not as private. All of the steps that I'm going to take in this tutorial is already uploaded to a repo on my GitHub. I'll try and have the link somewhere here on the screen, as well as in the description of this video. In that repo, you'll find the notebook and any snippets of code that I use to make this happen. So in going through that process over the last few weeks, I've learned a bunch, but I think these are the highlights. When I work closely with creators, there's always something in the dataset that they did not consider. And I think that's one of the easiest things to pull from visualizing a dataset. Another thing is if you have to present this information to a manager or a board or an investor, this is a way to do it so everyone can easily understand. And for everyone else that's curious about the data like myself, these are some of the other tools on my radar. Bulk, Galactic, Lilac have gotten a lot of attention over the last few weeks. I think Gonk is brand new, but I still want to try that as well. If you know of or have created any tools that do this sort of thing, please reach out. I'd love to test it and share my findings. On the flip side, if you have a data set that you would like help diving into, please let me know. If you run into any issues getting this running on Windows, please reach out. I actually struggled getting my GPU to work with WSL2 properly. I filmed most of my struggle and I can upload like an extended cut to a different channel. To be honest, I can't wait to get slaughtered in the comments about how this process could be improved. I actually enjoy those comments because I learn a lot from them. But seriously, please comment. Like I'll be monitoring and answering any questions. And in closing, please use this process and send me visualizations. Like I'm a visual person and I want to see, nice, pretty graphs of your data sets. Thanks.